Welcome back to Parenting Shrink Wrap. Melissa and Sam here. And this episode is part of a series that we're doing called The Nature of the Beast, where we're hoping to talk about what happens at all the different school levels when back to school time rolls around, which happens, in August or September, depending on where you live and what school your child goes to. But it's very different at different ages. So today I wanted to pick Sam's brain about her experience with back to school from her years of being a high school counselor and educator, and what that looks like. And I think I would like Sam to kind of work from the top down and actually start with the seniors versus kind of down to the freshmen, because it's very different even at the different grade levels in high school. And I think with thinking about 12th grade, Sam, one of the things that comes to mind for me is this is a time of, hey, we're getting prepared for what happens next. And that's what I think about most when I'm thinking about my time as a senior in high school. But Sam, what do you see for the 12th graders kind of that are about to go into 12th grade now and start the school year off?
Well, they change over the school year is what I'll say. So like early for first month, like early September seniors, I adore them. They're such fun because they've been waiting for 3 years to be leaders in the school, to be leaders on their teams, to be leaders in their activities. They know what they're doing. They are stepping into like big man on campus role. And so there's this self-assurance that comes from early seniorness that I love, right? And that does wear off. They become really difficult to deal with as the year goes on. They've had it, they've outgrown the school. But in the beginning of senior year, and then, the word for that is senioritis, but in the beginning of senior year, even though, yes, they're thinking, what's next for me? If college is next, or if work or whatever is next, they're considering it. Like this is the last this is the last bit of my school career that they all they've had to do thus far is just go with the current, go with the flow. They have to now choose their path, and that's really overwhelming for seniors, whether that is the college process or not. So early seniors, I think, are they're kind of, that like theater mask where there's like two sides of the mask, right? Like they're both true and they're both real. And one is a very entrenched kid in the school. And another is, or potentially, again, some seniors have just had it by the beginning, depending on what their school experience has been like. But if they've liked their school and they're involved in the school, early seniors are really a delight. And they're stressed out because if they're going through the college process, which, I went to college in 1993 and I applied to one school, got in, and that's where I went. And like, that is not the experience.
That is not the landscape today for today's seniors who are looking to pursue a college path.
No. It's so competitive. So the other thing that happens to seniors is there's a bit of a comeuppance, because at the junior year, and we can talk about that in a second, it's high pressure, right? And so they are like hoping that they can take their foot off the academic gas a little bit as seniors. But what happens is whatever like energy they can divert away from the pressure-filled academics that characterize their junior year is now diverted towards, or has to be diverted towards, college applications. And that's almost
like are really lengthy. There's a lot involved in college applications. Even there's like common applications for a lot of schools, there's still a lot of effort and then secondaries that go into college applications.
And for some seniors who don't realize that, it's like almost like they've been running a race and they cross what they think is, they've thought all along is the finish line. Just get to be a senior.
And coast through senior year.
And then someone's like, you know what? You're only 3/4 of the way done. You have, and you're like, what? Like, I used all my energy. So so sometimes fall seniors are really, really strung out. Even though they're excited to be captains and leaders and have this new influence.
But there's also a lot of, I would say, like lasts that are going to happen during senior year as well. Like, not everybody who's an athlete in high school is going to go on to necessarily play at the college level or even as an adult. So it might be the last football season, basketball season, baseball season, or whatever about to happen. And, other big major school events like homecoming and prom, these are kind of the last. So there's some grieving then that can also happen for some students during senior year because there's a piece of childhood somewhat getting left behind too that I've heard patients talk about that, they are facing this young adult world and it's much more in their face for senior year.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I mean, we've got some kids, if there's a spectrum, right? On the one end would be like the extremely sentimental. On the other end, there's like KMA, kiss my, and like just like I'm out of here. And those are both normal. And actually, sometimes kids feel both of those things at once about different parts of their high school experience. If you've got a kid who like just is finally starting to hit their social stride, those lasts may feel even more nostalgic because they're like, I'm just starting to feel like I'm stepping into me finally, right? And that can happen. Yeah. Of course, there's other kids who are like, I've run through all the friend groups and like I haven't found my people. I'm like banking on the next stop, right? So this is all so much thinking that goes outside of the school building too.
Oh yeah.
Right. So seniors are, they feel to themselves more mature than they actually are. Right? Because the high school treats them like the most mature, but like the elementary school treats fifth graders that way, but they're 10.
Yeah.
So seniors, I think, can be also a little too big for their britches. Sometimes they get a little cocky, which is what happens towards the end of senior year. And that's when they're a little harder to work with.
Well, by that point, most of them definitely have some element of senioritis, and that push, I would say, for the last couple of months or last marking quarter or last trimester, depending on your school, is really difficult sometimes to keep seniors motivated.
Accurate. But back to school seniors, like, savor these people. Savor them. They're really fun for like 4 or 5h weeks.
And then after September, we don't like them anymore, Sam, is what you're telling us.
No, then like there's always a frenzy of activity in schools in the fall, between athletic events and school plays and homecoming dances and whatever. And the weather's still good if you live in a part of the country where there are changing seasons, right? So there's so much that happens between August and Thanksgiving. That's usually, including for seniors, the college application process.
Yeah.
That's a time when like things are just happening so fast in the school building that I don't know. I don't see the drop off in terms of like senior attitude until a little later in the school year.
I think it's winter break, honestly.
Yeah, that's about.
I think it's like returning in January after being off for a week or two, and by that point, especially with a lot of seniors that I've seen, with early decision applications or early action, a lot of kids know even before the turn of the new year what school they're going to, which seems unbelievably early because it used to be like May.
Yeah, and it still is for some kids. Some kids do still have to wait till the regular decision deadline, which is, like anywhere from like late February to like late March, early April. And but kids who end up who have a yes of some school going into winter break, are more susceptible to senioritis for sure.
I think so.
Yeah.
So Sam, how would you contrast this now? You kind of mentioned like the pressure of junior year. Junior year, I think both in high school and in college is kind of known as like that really difficult, challenging year, you need to put, the pedal to the metal and go, 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 and really looking to perform your absolute best that year. So what do the juniors look like that are coming in, I would imagine, somewhat scared or anxious about junior year?
Yes, and it's reasonable, right? Because this is the year of standardized tests. No, I mean, plenty of districts have standardized tests they administer per district or national policy to, like, you know, kind of check on student progress,
Mm-hmm.
or to, like, see if the school is is delivering academic benchmarks. But these are standardized tests that are associated with college admissions, like SAT and ACT and AP tests, advanced placement tests, you know, and as you said, junior year is the last year of a full transcript before college applications are due. So when college applications are being submitted their senior year, they have like 6 weeks sometimes, or maybe a semester if you apply regular decision, of their senior year, but you don't have a full year. So junior year is the last, like, let me see what your performance was like in a full course of
Yeah.
whatever subject it was, right? Um, so yeah, junior year is interesting because you've got this high pressure academic landscape, and by junior year, or at least in the middle of junior year, many kids get their license, right?
Big
They're driving.
scary parenting moment right
Yes,
there, right? When your kid starts to drive themselves.
yes. And so the social landscape changes, and that's not to say that younger kids don't take risks or aren't involved in risks, but when socialization happens, like, under the steam of student drivers, or as opposed to parent drivers, you're just away from parents more often, which means there's higher risk for, like, substance experimentation or dumb decisions.
That missing curfew. Like if
Yeah,
mom or dad says, I'm going to pick you up at 10 o'clock, you're getting picked up at 10 o'clock versus an adolescent being told be home at 10. There's a big difference there.
yeah. So that's just another factor of junior year, and again, because there's some high energy for all grades at the start of the school year. Like, the summer is kind of restorative, and, like, what I see kids, maybe even kids who just really struggle academically and who dislike school, they often will come back to school with significant resolve. This is going to be my year. I'm going to buckle down. I'm going to do it, because no kid wants to struggle.
Yeah.
And sometimes they know that they've dropped balls, and that's the reason they haven't done well. And so, like, I'll see particularly juniors, because they're like, this is the year that matters. But if they haven't had the tools if they haven't received the skills that they need to actually buckle down, or they have, like, an executive function delay, like ADHD, like, that can really be a barrier to them actually carrying through. So juniors are also susceptible, I think, to pressure-based mental health concerns.
Hmm. I
Not
was
that
also
other,
thinking, Sam, about the pressures that occur societally to take on a lot more roles that
mm,
happen during junior year, because these kids are also old enough to get a job outside of school, so there might be financial pressure to assist financially with any expenses or be involved in teams,
not
clubs,
to mention
activities.
resume building for the
Yeah,
aforementioned
so
college process, which is utterly broken and, like, full of, again, like, I would not get into. I went to a pretty competitive school, and I would not get in today with the resume that I had going into, my freshman year of college.
and for
4 years
athletes,
ago.
like sometimes junior year is the first time playing at the varsity level for a sport, so there's more demands there on an athlete. I think the demands are definitely higher, um, potentially for junior year, but they're also solidified into the school at that point, and a lot of times socially, friend groups have been established
Yes.
as well, for better or worse, potentially.
So if you're parenting a junior going back to school, especially a junior who appears to, like, to know the significance of the school year, but not be acting like it's a significant school year. That's a pretty common theme, I'll say. Like as a school counselor, I got calls all the time being like, my kid really needs to light a fire and they won't do it. I have this box of matches. Show me how to make it work, and like if only it worked like that. Like there are things parents can do to improve motivation or squelch it too if they put too much pressure on it. But so I'd say that another thing, we can talk about freshmen in a second, but I see high conflict in freshman households, not because of a topic, but just because freshmen are the most dysregulated. But I see conflict in junior households because of what I just described: the high pressure academics and the still growing ability to lock in on things.
Yeah, and I think also too, a lot of times as parents, we're worrying about our kids' future, and we know what needs to happen for this academic year, that it's producing your own parental anxiety, that it's like, I know my kid wants to go to X place after high school, and it's only going to happen if they can do that this year.
Yeah.
And I'm not seeing that, and it's October already, and what's going on here?
Right. There you go. There's fodder for conflict right there. So that's another kind of back to school joy with juniors, a potential back to school joy.
So, all right, let's jump down a grade level to our sophomores, our rising sophomores who are no longer the new kid in school. They're kind of in a weird limbo place.
They're my favorite. I love sophomores. I'll tell you why. They're the most present in the school building. Because they're not the frantic freshmen and they don't have the pressure of junior year. So they're not like thinking about resume building or test taking or whatever it is. They are just there. And we say things like, oh, sophomores, they're a nothing, they're just there. But what I mean is like, no, their feet and head are in the same place. And they're the only grade in the school that is like that collectively. Because it's too early for them to be planning their exit. And they've just figured it out. So
they're not the new kid.
They've got good relationships with teachers. They understand how things work. You see some budding confidence, a little bit higher risk taking, and I mean the good kind of risk taking. Trying things out, trying on activities that they were like, no, nobody does that. Mom, nobody goes to Model UN. Nobody. and then what do you know? Sophomore year, they're like, I gave Model UN a try. Turns out people go to that thing, and then the parents like, I thought maybe that was the case, and
well, they also step into having the ability to take on some of those leadership roles and stuff too, since they're not the new kid.
Yeah.
And they know their way around the school building, and they have friends. They might have friends who are upperclassmen. They start to get some independence, because also depending on where you live, some of these kids are getting a permit.
This is when the driver's license thing starts, right?
Which they're excited most of the time to get. So they're starting to feel some independence and some responsibility that every adolescent is always seeking.
Of course, the downside of that is you as the parent have to teach them to drive. And if there's a season of my parenting life
there yet.
I don't want to repeat, it's the season called teaching my teenager to drive. Like that,
give that job
down on that one.
I think honestly, my husband will be much better at teaching the kids to drive than I will be, just based on personality, temperament, and whatnot. I think I'm going to hand over that responsibility.
If he will take it, bless him very much.
He would.
But so sophomores, I really like them, but also they're also some of them are testing a little bit. Like I said, we can talk about freshmen in a second, but freshmen are kind of frantic. They're just like big eighth graders, and this is the year where they're like, no, I'm a high schooler now. Like their
attitude comes out a little bit.
Eighth grade is like in the rear view mirror, far distant past by this point. So yeah, so there can be a little cockiness, but there's cockiness with all teenagers. Like it's just, I don't know. That's the nature of the beast. That is the
nature of the beast. The other thing I think though that can sometimes produce some excitement, but also some arrogance, is if you have an athlete on your hand, college recruitment often can start in sophomore year.
Depending
So
on the sport, yes.
depending on the sport, so your kid may be getting looked at, which can create definitely some excitement and confidence, but can also sometimes produce some arrogance about their level of ability. So there's a fine line that you toe with some of the athletes at this age group as well. And there might be push to commit very young and early on, and whether or not your kid is really ready at that stage is very individualized, I would
And
say.
if your kid is playing a sport but isn't on that track, they may have teammates who are. And
Mhm.
so that comparison, like, am I good enough? Am I measuring up? Like again, that, sophomores who get recruited by a college and commit to a college by the end of their sophomore year, they are in the minority, right? That's not the typical
Yeah.
path, right? But again, if your kid plays sports, they may have teammates. They may be one of those kids, but if they have teammates, there could be some comparison stuff happening for.
And then down to our youngest group of high schoolers, our incoming freshmen, our newly graduated middle schoolers who are definitely frantic and stepping into a world that often they're very, very anxious about.
Yeah, and there's such a huge range, like I saw, like you've got kids who as freshmen are like trying to figure out how they're going to get invited to senior parties, right? And they sit next to other kids who are like, Mom, can I sit in the front seat now? Am I tall enough to sit in the front seat of the car yet? like those, they go to school with each other.
Yeah,
And
and it's such a wide range still of development and maturity. Because I also think too, just even from like a growth, like physical size, by ninth grade, most girls are fully matured, done growing. They
yeah, the
step into high
backseat
school.
kids, those are the boys.
Yeah, the boys are like nowhere near done yet, and it's just biological that like boys grow later than girls do. So you sometimes too, I think like when you look at freshmen, sometimes the girls look so much older and more mature, and the boys still look like kind of kids in a way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you have a boy though who is athletic and who has hit puberty earlier, that can be a recipe for social clout for better or for worse. Because that boy may be thrown into, and it's not just that, but like that's an example of a time when that kid could be thrown into social situations that they may not be ready for. They may physically look like they're ready for it, but cognitively, emotionally, they may not be.
The
So,
girls too, cognitively, emotionally, they're usually not ready, but look like an adult woman.
so I spent, a lot of years working in schools where it was pre-K to 12 in the same building. And one of the distinctions between middle school kids and high school kids is middle schoolers run everywhere. Like they do. It's like it's lunchtime, they run to lunch. After lunch to go outside, they run to break, right? High schoolers lope. They don't run. But freshmen, when they show up, they're still running. They're still
Oh,
running to places. They're still using their eighth grade approach to things. And so somehow they're like look around. At some point, they're like, nobody else is running. We're
why am
supposed
I
to
running?
we're supposed to have a cynicism to us. We're supposed to be a little like snarky. I guess I gotta like tamp down the running. That's that's a concrete example of something that's really just an energy thing too. That you walk into a freshman classroom and it's like bzz, 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 like it's like this electricity that's happening, and it's funny and it's all over the place. And I used to teach freshman health and wellness, and among other things, I taught the sex ed unit.
Oh
That's
boy.
so fun, so fun. And some of the questions were like so endearing and so off the wall, and so like again, like they're little kids in many ways, but they're put in this building full of big kids, so they suddenly try to act older than they are, and it doesn't work very well, and so it's incredibly awkward. Further, if your kids haven't started doing this in middle school, there's a good chance that freshman year they're going to be like, you walk 10 feet ahead and I'm going to pretend I don't have a mom. Right. Like,
But they're still dependent on the parents to drive them
yes.
everywhere. Because if they don't take a bus to school, or they go to a school that doesn't offer busing, or they want to go to a friend's house or an activity, mom or dad or guardian is still responsible for getting this child
Mhm.
to and from.
And every kid is pretending that they have more autonomy than they do, because like the kid's only 14, right? Like they. So that's just the hardest year in my household was parenting my ninth grade boy because. First of all, I told you I taught sex ed, right? So I was his teacher and his friend's teacher. Like that's
That was a bad dynamic.
yeah. Do not recommend. So like teaching your kids to drive, 0 stars. Do not recommend. Um, but also where he was developmentally in terms of his comfort level with himself, which was not finished yet.
Nor should it be.
No, it was totally he was normal, but like there was just so much conflict in my household during his ninth grade year because this was new territory for him. He was trying to adjust to a high school setting. He was trying to fit in socially. His stupid mother was like in every assembly and around the corner and taught all of his friends. Like, just so it was all that awkwardness was amplified by the fact that I was in the building. And all that awkwardness is totally normal for that beast. That's the nature of that beast, the ninth grader.
So
Also, they've got all these new classes to master, a new way of doing things.
new building.
They've got a new building. They've got they're to figure out all the systems in this new building. Even though most schools do some kind of limited orientation for freshmen and they figure it out, but there's some high anxiety for a lot of kids entering into high school because
Well, like,
they're like the stakes are higher.
for me, I have like no sense of direction. Just like the anxiety about where each classroom was
Mm-hmm.
when you started someplace new. It was one of the most dreadful things for me going through different rotations in medical school because every 6 weeks you change locations and you change departments in third year of medical school.
Yeah.
So I'd have to learn like whole new hospitals and with no sense of direction. Like that's anxiety provoking for
Yeah,
me.
and that's what a big high school feels like to a 14-year-old kid, right? Like, am I going to find my way? Am I going to go into the wrong class? Am I going to eat at the wrong lunch? All of the answers are yes. You're going to do that.
Like the
Something.
locker combo. Like,
Mhm. Yep, and so like if we can reassure our kids that that's normal, and there's some things that they can do proactively to make that transition easier. The first is get to know an adult at school. Like if like not give a little more of themselves to a teacher. Like if there's a teacher that they like, like just stick around for 30 seconds at the end of the class and say thanks, so like thanks for a class, or I'll see you next time. Like make yourself known to a teacher who gives you a good vibe. Begin to cultivate a relationship, a positive one, with an adult at school. Ideally more than one.
and
But
look at those teachers as individuals, not as a teacher, because they have lives also outside of school. Like they may do a hobby that you have an interest in, or
ninth
something
graders
like
aren't
that.
gonna. Yes, that's great advice, but ninth graders aren't gonna see it that way. They are still like, wait, you don't sleep here? I mean, like they know it intellectually, but they're not like there's just a massive, especially August and September ninth
You're
graders.
making me laugh because I had a patient last week who asked me if I slept at my office.
Yeah, right. Well,
A
how
little
old are
kid,
they? How old? A little kid, right?
six.
Yeah. So like, um, but that's advice you can give to your freshmen if you're listening, and also some advice I would give to freshman parents. Social things. If your kid is new to high school, or if there's some like plate tectonics with social groupings, I don't find that kids really find their people until about spring break. That's not to say they go friendless. They don't. They try on different social groups for size, and it isn't until about like February, March that I start to see kids really settling in with people who are going to have some sticking power with them. So if you're kind of like, if your kid is not talking to anyone by Halloween, call the school counselor, call the adult who hopefully your kid has befriended, right? Maybe reach out to school to be like, are you seeing this? Like I'm seeing my kid doesn't seem to have any connections at all. That's cause for concern. But if your kid has loose connections by October, don't worry about that too much, because I don't find that they really settle in till months after the fact. And parents and kids, frankly, think that they should have their friend group solidified 6 weeks into school. And
Or even when school starts.
yeah, right, right. And so that's just, now again, if you're in a district or in a school setting where the kids are traveling from middle school to high school, that doesn't necessarily apply. But this is like where there's a shakeup socially.
Yeah, but there may also be changes, even if there was a solidified friend group in middle school and it is the same kids in high school, things can still shift dramatically, and friend groups can definitely still change
Absolutely.
a lot during freshman year.
Absolutely. So freshman year, I had a colleague who used to call them little puppies. That's again, they like, like little puppies, they run everywhere, and then like their back legs start to overtake their front legs, and their paws are too big, and then the puppy just falls down. That's freshman boys right there. Like they just they're a delight and a lot, and they're exhausting and funny and smart and awesome. But
And Sam will like them better when they become sophomores.
Yeah, but challenging. So if you're finding that in your household, it's not you. Like it's them. It's not you, it's them.
So we hope this has provided some tips, some tools about back to school for our high schoolers, and really what is the nature of the beast of entering these different high school years. So thank you so much for joining us for this wonderful episode on back to school and the nature of the beast. So if you have a comment, a review, feel free to reach out to us at parentingshrinkwrapped@gmail.com, or any questions. And otherwise, thank you for raising the next generation of world changers. And please tune into the other episodes in this series of Nature of the Beast.
Thanks for joining us on this wild ride called parenthood here at Parenting Shrink Wrapped. We hope today's episode gave you some useful tools and maybe even a few laughs to help you navigate the twists and turns of raising teens and kids.
Remember, parenting is a journey, not a destination. And no matter where you are on the road, we're here to help you stay on course. Whether it's monumental meltdowns, teenage turmoil, or just the everyday chaos, you don't have to travel this path alone.
So until next time, keep your seatbelt fastened, your sense of humor intact, and your eyes on the road. We'll be back soon with more compassionate conversations and practical strategies to support you and your family.
Don't forget to subscribe to Parenting Shrink Wrapped wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. And if you've enjoyed today's show, we'd love it if you'd leave us a review and share it with a friend.
If you have suggestions for topics you'd like to see us cover in the future, feel free to send us an email at parentingshrinkwrapped@gmail.com.
Until we meet again, take care and enjoy the ride.